Good evening, everyone. Eric, what is your quorum? 5?
4.
4? Okay, thanks.
Okay, it looks like we have a quorum, so if you want to go ahead and get started, we can get going. You are on mute, Matt.
That is very true. I started out muted. CJ just texted me, said that she's having issues with connection. Can we just stand by just for a minute here, and I'm going to see if I can help her out?
Yeah, sure. We're still waiting on Brian too. So.
Oh, very good. Okay. All right, folks, CJ is joining. Probably, hopefully.
All right, I think we're good whenever, man.
Okay, let me bring up the agenda here. Sorry, I wasn't particularly organized tonight. I think we have called the meeting to order at 6:37. Public forum, nobody here from the public this evening, and special meeting topic, a working session for Title 16 Historic Preservation.
I have to hop in and do roll call real quick.
That is correct. I always forget that. That's
All
very
right.
important. Eric, would you
All
like to
right.
take roll call?
Yeah, Matt Crabtree,
Present.
Cash Parker,
Here.
Melinda Ellswick,
Here.
Hannah Miles,
And
and CJ Cullinan.
Here.
And Lauren Cooper is absent. Noted for staff present, Nancy Fenton, Brian Isom, and Eric Sampson with Community Development. Okay, you can take it away, Matt.
All right, very good. Special meeting topic, working session for Title 16 Historic Preservation Ordinances with Englewood City Attorney.
Thank you,
And,
Victoria.
Victoria, Deputy City Attorney.
That is correct. Thank you very much. Let me begin by sharing my screen with you. So,
Can't
all
hear you that well. I'm sorry.
right, bear with me a moment while I address that. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my settings. Is that any better?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll go back to sharing my screen, and for this working session, I want to, I understand and appreciate that from my review, there have been at least 3 members of the city attorney's office who have worked with this commission in trying to prepare and rewrite this 16611. It seems that you all are frustrated that there's too many cooks in the kitchen and that there's just another member of the city attorney's office that's working on this, and that this may lead to further delay. That is not the case. That is not the goal. The goal of this process and the additional revisions that were suggested were just to ensure that we are providing clarity and a transparent process, and to ensure that comments that were made by the city council at previous study sessions have been incorporated and addressed. So we've gone through the version history. Initially, section 16611 was passed back in, it looks like 2004, and was initially envisioned that the planning and zoning would be authorized to designate landmark properties. May 1st, 2017, that's when the first version, or at least from our records, the first version went to council. I'm sorry, May 17, 2021, the first version went to council at a study session. We've gone over that study session to make sure that we understand what the comments were at that time. Then a prior member of our department, I think it was Dugan Comer, made revisions back in July of 21 that were forwarded to Melinda that were made to incorporate some of the comments made during that study session in May. Then in November, this went back again for another study session. And that was the same version that Melinda had shared at the last meeting from July 2021. So the current edits that you all are seeing, these 2023 edits, are changes that have been made to that prior version. So what's different? And I'll bring this up in a moment, but just at a high level, the suggested revisions that are currently being suggested to the version of the ordinance that has gone to study sessions before council are to section B, the procedures for an original designation. And those are just changes that are being made to identify that the Historic Preservation Commission is the commission, not the Planning and Zoning Commission. Also, there were changes that were previously made by Mr. Comer regarding the hostile designation section to ensure that we're allowing for owner consent. There's one section that is in there regarding that consent process, and we're just suggesting that got moved down to the application section because might seem more appropriate there. Then there's the section B3 regarding the public hearing. This is just being suggested for clarity for the procedures of what would happen of the public hearing before the Historic Preservation Commission. And those changes are modeled after the CGL model ordinance. Then there's another suggested change in section B4 regarding the commission review to again make clear that it's the Historic Preservation Commission. And then in section B5, there's a suggested change to make clear that the action by council will be by ordinance approval as opposed to a resolution. And the basis for that has to do with our charter and what council actions may be taken by ordinance versus resolution. Additionally, there is a suggested change in section E regarding criteria, not to any of the actual specific items regarding what criteria would be considered, but that making it the language more broad so that it wouldn't be limited to what the commission was looked at, because council also reviews this process as well. And then there's also a reference under the criteria section about the consent of an owner. And because that is previously included in the rewrite, we just suggest taking it out of that section. So I'm now going to pull up so this is the version. Sorry. Yes, so this is the current version with the changes that are suggested. And I can go through that point by point, addressing the new suggested changes if that's helpful. At this point, I'm not sure how you would like to proceed with reviewing that.
I'll go ahead and jump in here. So this is a working session.
Yes.
I don't think we should draw this out too long, but for the benefit of the working session, going over the ordinance and the changes, Melinda, you're going to probably have the best visibility on this, both Melinda and Cash. Have you, I don't recall if this was in the packet. Was this in the packet? Was this, I'm sorry, Victoria, was this in the packet going to us for this meeting or not?
Let me pull that up. I don't know. It was previously in the packet that was provided at the last meeting.
I don't think it was.
Eric circulated this red line like shortly after our last meeting.
Okay, so I've had a busy couple of weeks here. So I guess to that point, if we haven't had a chance to review this, has anybody had a chance to review this ahead of it? Melinda, Cash, have you guys been able to review this ahead of this meeting?
I mean, I looked through it in the last meeting because it's the same thing we looked at in the last meeting. So yes.
Okay, and Melinda? You're muted. Oh, Melinda, you're muted. Sorry, Melinda, you're still muted.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
The version we looked at most recently had a section on a public hearing, like before any of the nominations and so forth, and that seemed to be in the wrong place.
The I actually I went back and looked at the history of our efforts on this. And in May 2021, we attended a council study session, and Jason presented a PowerPoint explaining what we were about. And the question arose of whether we were a quasi judicial body. And then it seemed clear that we weren't. But then in our subsequent meeting, we also discussed what we were like the fees and so forth, that because at that time there was council had set a $500 fee for application. We had nothing on fees in our draft. Still don't. Eric was to look and see what other local municipalities had for their fees, and but never came up with anything. We compared ourselves to Golden, which does not have a fee for application. Then in our next meeting, we met with Tamara Niles, who saw really no issues with our draft. It was similar to things that she drafted when she was a city attorney in Kansas. And then after that, Dugan Comer did a draft and added that paragraph about the written consent of the applicant, which should be in the form of the application form, and the simple majority of the homeowners if a district is nominated, which is I don't have a problem with adding that paragraph in there. And I thought I had shared the or that everyone had received Dugan's changes, which were not considerable, but those are things that I remember.
Okay, I appreciate the history on that, Melinda. Now, I know I recall at the last meeting we were discussing if we were reviewing the latest revision of this document, and we were. Is that the case?
The latest one that we had accepted, the latest other one, apart from the one that we discussed at our last meeting, was the version from the Dugan.
And those revisions were placed into this document. Is that correct?
It looks like this version has his revisions in it, and the part that I objected to in the previous version that we looked at was the public meeting part being like, or the first thing that we do, and really the only official public hearing is the one that council conducts. We recommend to council, and they, in a public hearing, either approve by ordinance a designation of a historic monument. That's or a landmark, if you will, or a district. But they approve it, and that's the official public meeting, not us. Although our commission meetings, or I mean, the order of applications here because the earlier version also had the application coming directly to the commission. And we had rewritten it as the application comes to the Community Development Department, who reviews it to make sure it's complete. I guess collects any fee and then gives it to the commission. Our meetings are open, so the applicant can certainly attend our meeting. But it's not a public hearing. And then we recommend to council, and that's where the public hearing takes place.
So if I may just kind of get in on what these changes and the concerns that Melinda's raising. So yes, there's a public hearing component that was taken to council during the May 2021 study session. As originally, that version that went before them included that upon this section right here, upon receipt of an application for nomination and designation as a historic landmark or district, the commission shall hold a public hearing too. And then it goes into that process. The council was, there didn't appear to be from the comments a concern regarding that. The issue was raised about if that would make the Historic Preservation Commission a quasi-judicial body. And the discussion was yes, that it would, and which is accurate. The comment that was made by now Mayor Sierra was that then there would just need to be training regarding what a quasi-judicial, the rules regarding quasi-judicial hearings. Because this was in the document, the revision that I made and suggested was just to add more information about what that public hearing would look like. Now, it is the way that it's structured is that there would be the nomination, the application comes in. There's the public hearing before the Historic Preservation Commission. And as part of their review, they would review the evidence, the application of the evidence submitted at the public hearing for conformance with the established criteria. It's similar to what happens when, for instance, a PUD application goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission and how that process works. It's also consistent with the language that's part of the model ordinance that's put out by History Colorado. And that's the reason for that change. Second, regarding fees, there is a section in here regarding the application fee on that it would be set by ordinance. The suggested change that I included, which is to be consistent with other drafting that is currently happening by our office with changes to the municipal code, is to refer to the city's rate and fee schedule, so that if there's any subsequent changes, they're made in that document and they're all consistent and published on the city's website. And then with respect to consent, that is still in here. That is something that Mr. Comer made, a change that he made following that May 2021 study session. It's all still in here. The thing I did was just to break it out so that there's now these sections, so that it's by the owner, by member of the commission, by member of council. It's all the same language. It's just kind of taken out into these subsections. And then the thing that I had suggested doing, which I haven't done in this section, would just be to move E regarding the consent, to put that under the application section itself, since it's pertaining to the application, which is something that could happen or not happen. I do have, and we obviously have the version that was previously circulated for your review as well. If you prefer to just go with this and ignore the changes that are currently being suggested, that's fine, and that's an okay direction. There are the actions regarding council, however, do need to be changed so that it reflects the proper action that they can take, that it would be by ordinance as opposed to a resolution. And that's under the council review section here.
Yeah, that's the Dugan-Comer version.
Correct.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a quick question. If you're a renter in Englewood, are you considered a resident? Because you're definitely not considered an owner.
No,
Because you know, how sometimes renters get all excited and they help their neighbors do stuff.
I'm gonna go with how we view our short-term rental regulations, and that if you have to be the primary resident of the property and provide documentation as such, and we don't allow renters to operate a short-term rental. So that's how I'm interpreting that.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Well, and as this version has it, everything we're, like I say, we recommend to council. We don't issue a ruling as a judicial body. We recommend to council, and they either approve or deny our recommendation.
Yes, that's correct. And that is exactly how it is still worded in the 2023 edits. However, both versions include a public hearing before your body. So this would make going by either version, it would make the Historic Preservation Commission a quasi judicial body that would be making a recommendation that then goes to council for final action.
Okay, so we got a couple ways of going through this. We can start at the top. I mean, this may very well be the last time that we look at this. And Victoria, I very much appreciate you. It seems like this has been kind of difficult to navigate, because there have been so many people involved in this ahead of you. I'll say that we're not frustrated at you or the city manager's, or I'm sorry, city attorney's office. It's been a long process, and a lot of people have looked at this and poked and prodded at it. I will say that a bulk of what's in here has stayed, right? So that's kind of a good sign throughout this whole process that so many people looked at it, and there's a bulk of it that has stayed in here. If we want to dedicate the time tonight, and Cash, I'll maybe ask you as the vice chair, considering you look at documents like this far more often than I do, is it prudent for our time to literally read through this and get input per page? What's the best way to review this at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's no super clean or efficient way to do it, especially given the amount of red lines we're dealing with and how much it's been moved around. Yeah, probably what you're talking about, Matt. If we go through and if there's on a particular page any concerns or anyone wants to have discussion about it, that's probably the easiest way to do it. I mean, hopefully there's more than one page where there's not a lot of issues we have to hash through.
Sure. All right, well, let's start at the top here. So I'd say let's get into it.
Well, before you begin, which version do you want to do this process through? Because the version that's currently being shared is the last version from back in 2021.
Ahead of council meeting or after the council meeting?
After.
After. And that was the one that was shared with the commission ahead of this meeting. Eric?
That is the one that was shared with the commission ahead of this meeting was that version with a few other suggested changes.
Okay, so the one that I have up right now on my computer is the email that Eric sent. Make sure
So it's July 21? Because we're talking about
No.
July 21 or
Eric.
2023, right?
Eric sent an email on January 12th, 2023 that has an attachment,
okay.
and that's what I'm looking at, and it has it's showing in different colors on my computer than the screen share, but it appears to be the same, and it has the margin comments from you, Victoria. I believe that's the latest one.
Yes, that's accurate.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was completed in late June and sent us in July 2021.
All right.
The track changes down here, so.
No, because it
so-
wouldn't have Victoria's comments, Melinda.
So as you can see from the footer.
Mm.
So this is a markup based off of the version, I think the last one was June 20th, 2021, which is what Dugan sent to Melinda in July.
Mhm.
That version had been in the city attorney's office, and the comments that were made on that copy. So they would include everything that had been adjusted, and all those revisions would have been incorporated. And then there would be the changes made on top of that. It says right now, February 2nd, 2023, because I saved it and it keeps updating that.
Okay, good. That's the one that I'm looking at here, and that's the one you're
Yeah,
looking at, Jack.
Same. Yep.
Okay,
That's the
very
one
good.
That's the one Eric sent January 12th to the commission.
Okay, very good. Let's dig in here. 16611, obviously that title number will change. A, purpose. This is pretty simple here. Is there any input on this paragraph? Okay, not hearing any. Moving on, A1. Second paragraph here, preserve and protect building structures, so on. Looks like it's pretty simple here. There was a strike of, it was an earlier version, I believe, which provides significant examples of architectural styles of the past are landmarks in the history of architecture, was removed. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Section 2, so A2, develop and maintain, so there's really no significant changes there. Moving to 3, promote health and safety. There's a removal of architecturally significant or historic structures or districts. What was do we know the reason why that was removed?
That was removed in May of 2021.
Okay, so yeah, before your time. Do we have any history? I mean, first, I guess I'll ask the question, is there any concern with having that removed from this? I think this question has come up before in the past. It's been so long. I don't recall what the reason for it is. We're not going to spend any time on it if everybody's okay with the change. Is everybody okay with the change?
We had rephrased it as historically significant resources in our final draft.
So I see that.
And I think we need to get that word back in there again, because
This is right
right
below it.
now it just says,
No, it's there. Just
It's
keep
there. It's
reading.
in it's in
Preservation
3B.
of historically significant. Look at B, the only
Sorry,
black.
okay,
area.
in the other version there, it just sort of stops at the preservation of. Oh, I see
Okay.
what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, moving
And the
on.
numbering is a bit skewed there.
Just to confuse you.
Hey,
Yes,
application, any property owner wishing to have a building structure or district designated as architecturally or and of course, historically significant moves of previous paragraph, shall file an application with the city on a form supplied by city resource, by city.
and that we said form provided by the commission.
So that's a strike through, so that it reads that 3 continues to promote public health and safety, while it's then to historically significant resources.
And then that the application,
Application section is now down here.
very good, okay. So we'll keep rolling. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the clarification, because I was wondering where application went. C, stabilize and improve property values by conserving historic properties. That was a different variant of the change there. Is this a later revision, Victoria?
Yes, so in the version, I from our discussion last time, that seemed to that seemed to upset some members of the commission, so I deleted the cross out.
Okay. All right, so C is still removed.
Is it?
Yes, because the way it goes, like, these are the purposes, it's 1, 2, 3, and then 4.
4, I see. Okay, you guys are still struck through on mine, oddly enough, with the version that I see here.
That's
but
just the
okay.
way it looks, yeah.
So that's been, okay, fine, so that's added back in. B, procedures for and then designating historic structure sites is struck, original designation of landmarks and districts and for preservation. So procedures for original landmarks and districts. Is everybody okay with that change as it relates following here? Okay, nominations, a nomination for designation as a historic structure, site, landmark is replaced there, landmark or historic district. Is there any concern with this paragraph and the definition change there? Instead of historic structure, it's historic landmark or historic district. That makes sense? Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Yeah, although I think calling everything a landmark is perhaps confusing to potential applicants.
Why?
Well, say we wanted to designate the Cherylin horse car. It's certainly a historic structure, but is not something you can point to as a landmark.
But we would, using this nomination thing.
However, technically the Cherylin horse car would not be a structure. Would it?
Yeah,
Well,
think
that's why we
landmark is just
originally
what-
had the word object.
but landmarks are what they use now nationally. I mean, I even think it's internationally.
Okay.
Real fast, I'll lean on Cash for this one. What do you think?
Well, I was going to raise a different point.
Okay.
The question, what was the question? Sorry, I was thinking about my next point.
Sure. Removing structure and site and replacing it landmark or historic district. That would be B1 on first page here. So yeah, so this would be.
Gosh, we need Lauren. She's the one that tells us yes, yes, yes.
That the way it's drafted right now looks fine to me.
Yeah, I would argue that the for example, the example provided by Melinda, the Cherylin would it is an object, but it
Mhm.
it's not a building, right?
Right.
Well, a landmark, I don't think has to be a building. I think
Oh,
that
okay.
covers more than a building.
Yep.
Okay, then to that point, Melinda, are you okay with leaving this as landmark?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my objection.
Thank you.
Very good. Cool, thank you. Let's see, application individual property owner, a nomination may be made by the owner of the property, collectively owner, by a member of the commission, by a member of city council, or by a non-owner of the property or properties to be designated, in which case the applicant must be a resident or owner of the owner of property in the city, or have a place of business in the city, were nominated by someone other than the owner or less than all of the owners in a district nominated for designation. The city or at least one member of the commission shall, within 30 days of receipt of the nomination, contact the owner in writing outlining the reasons for and effects of a landmark district designation. That was a pretty significant addition that was made at some point here. Does that everybody agree with that?
So then can you, Victoria, I think you're controlling the screen share. Can you scroll down to the E for that section? Because that looks like that's something different than what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think what may have happened in between, well, E was added after the May 2021 study session before council in order to address concerns that were raised regarding like a hostile designation.
Right.
Yes.
So this is, and I remember that now, and this is the point that I was going to raise. So D and E are sort of internally inconsistent, because D says that anyone, any resident or any property owner or business owner in the city can make this designation. And then there's this process for contacting the owner in writing. And then it goes on to say, but all nominations shall, in other words, must be accompanied by a written consent to the nomination. So I don't know that.
And we lost Cash.
Oh, darn.
Oh, It's right in the middle of a very important sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can wait for him to get back on, but, and I can repeat this again, this was part of the May 2021 revision, and the rationale that was presented to council was that the idea would be that there's owners that might not be familiar with this process, and this would be kind of like a friendly application that would be like the owner would know, but they don't need to be the person that actually fills it out.
Like what happened with the Scarrett House?
Well,
Yeah,
No,
that
matter
was,
of fact,
you
they
know,
didn't
with the
do it. Somebody else
commission,
did.
wanting to nominate the Scarrett House.
real fast here as a point of order, can we just pause just for a minute? Eric, can you get in touch with, can you try to reach Cash and see if he's available on his phone?
He might be talking away.
I can try and email him.
You have his phone number?
I'll call.
I don't have his phone number.
What?
You have his phone number, CJ?
And the answer is yes.
Oh, amazing.
I'm a very verbal person. See, stuff like this is really important, you know, what is inconsistent, you know?
Yeah, and Cash
That's
has
the part I don't see.
Cash has a great perspective on that.
Dang it. you guys
Hey,
Just rang.
Sorry
Oh, he's
about that.
back.
My
Hey.
yeah, sorry. I had to switch iPads. The other one died. Sorry.
It was very
So
abrupt. We were worried about you.
Yeah, no, it was like I didn't realize the battery was that low. It was even plugged in too. It was like that. So sorry about that. So I don't know what you picked up of what I was saying,
No,
but
you said there
but-
was inconsistency between C
Yeah.
and D, and then
D,
you started.
right. D and E under this nomination section are inconsistent because D talks about how this process for someone who's not an owner of the property can submit a designation, and then there's this 30 days of receipt, the owner has to be contacted. But then the next section says all nominations shall, in other words, must be accompanied by written consent from the owner. So I think it needs to be reworked a little bit, or D needs to be taken out in view of E being in there. And I know the reason that doesn't line up is because E got added by the law firm, I think, right after we had the city council session, because they were concerned about, as Victoria said, a hostile designation. So it just those don't totally work together the way that they're drafted.
See, to me, it almost sounded like a flow about the non-owner brings it forward, and then a written information is sent to the actual owner by the commission.
Yeah, well, I think, and I'm happy, Cash, that you brought that up, because I think we both commented on this the last time, or at least one of these times here. And I too am concerned about a hostile. I'm actually concerned about two things as related to this, but one mainly is the hostile nomination process, right? I understand that there would be sensitivity with a historic property. If, for instance, the IOF building, the owner refused to have it designated, and the owner also wants to tear it down and build a Starbucks. The community would be very upset in that case. And what action would the community have? So by having a non-owner be able to submit a nomination, however, things get really dicey when you start going down that path. Because if you open up the opportunity for someone to forcibly apply or forcibly provide a designation on a property, it could corrupt the whole process. The good in the process could be corrupted through that. There could be, I mean, you look at a lot of things that happened in Denver with that diner.
Right.
I can't remember the name of the diner, but it was just
Tom's.
yeah.
The
And
spot.
there was a group of people that really liked that building and wanted to save it, but the owner had other intentions. And it was a very divisive thing, and it turned a large percentage of that area against historic preservation. And I don't know if we're at a point here. I would much rather personally see a historic designation process for volunteer historic designation process become the norm first before we even go down this path. It's one of those things, we get what we can get right now. I don't know how everybody else feels about that. I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, I just real quick, and then I'm interested to hear other people's perspectives. I'll say three things about that. One, I agree with what you just said, Matt. That's my view of it as well. Two, if we leave any hint, I guess, of a hostile quote unquote designation process in here, I think council's just going to take it out anyway. I think that's essentially what they've told us they're going to do, which is why we put E in there or that was drafted and inserted after the meeting with council. And then third, like I said, I was just raising the point of these don't really exactly make sense. And so I think the solution, the way this is set up now, is probably to delete D. And I think that's what would happen anyway if we submit this to council as it is. That's my thought on it, but I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts as well.
And I'll throw out too, if someone that is non-owner really wants to work for this, they can still speak, they can still, use public, what do you call it, discourse, conversation, and talk about, this is something we need to save, let's see if peer pressure will work on this person, whatever. But you're right, making it part, because you're right. I think two different council people made it sound like, nah, we're not going to give you that ability. So I agree with Cash.
Yeah. Well, of course, those same two council members are unlikely to give us anything. But I have a comment about the as part and D also, that less than all of the property owners in a district. And then later on we say a simple majority is what's required to approve. So and we're unlikely to get all of the property owners in a district, and with the non-contributing properties even have a dog in that fight. So I'd take out D and I beneath it.
I still agree with Cash, but in Arapahoe Acres, when we tried to do something, there were 3 or 4 straw out of 124 homes. But people that were active, let's just say 38 people, there were 3 or 4 people who said no. And so many people didn't want to ruin their community, neighborhood relations, stuff like that. So then everything just dropped. So some of that will happen too.
So is there, pardon me, is there a consensus then to remove non-owner designations and require that in the case of districts that all property owners within the district would consent?
Hannah, let me get your opinion on this one. You're kind of new to this process. I don't think you saw the original versions of this, but I'd like to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the ability to just listen. It's been really nice, but I agree with taking out D and I like the idea of kind of giving a voice without it being hostile or worrying about another side of things. But I was agreeing the whole way. I didn't think that they made sense together. It sounded contradictory, which leaves a lot of gray area if someone were to bring that forward. So I agree, it has to be one or the other.
Okay, Victoria, I think we have a consensus at this point. What's the best action here for? I understand that by changing one thing sometimes affects another. So is there any?
So I can make these changes. So all right. this brings me to my next concern or question. So we're gonna require consent of the owner and consent of all the property owners within a district. And then, but we would still allow for non-owners, being the commission and council, to apply. Correct?
My understanding
That's
on
where
that
the
was
simple majority came in on a district, though.
I thought we had done simple majority for a district, and then
Mhm.
for the
Yeah,
for the
51%
city council member nominating, they could do that, but they would still need consent from the owner to do so. This was, I remember having a discussion about somebody who would be perhaps too busy or not able to go through the application process themselves, but could do it with the help of a council member or the Historic Preservation Commission member. And that was that, but they still needed that consent of the owner to even apply for that landmark.
And
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah,
That's important to have in here. So consent of the owner. But a district nomination, that was a much larger discussion.
Doesn't it say that in E?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it does.
It does.
I'm sorry, Victoria, I am looking at a document that is way different in this section than yours.
well, let's look at hers then.
Yeah,
And I had another thought. I mean, I can see where it would be problematic, but for instance, after attending the lecture on the Mayflower Congregational Church, it would be a good place to designate, but who owns it? The United Church of Christ? I mean, it's not, when it's a public building
well,
like that,
there's still, I mean,
It's not public.
there's the board, well, in that particular case, I believe the board has authority, the board for the specific church has the authority for ownership and funding in that particular case. I mean, there are probably scenarios where you have a tenant in the building and you have an owner that is not present, but there's still an owner. Somebody's paying taxes on the property, unless it's a church. I suppose they don't pay taxes.
that was
But-
my concern, yeah.
But there's still an owner associated with the building to some degree. I understand that there's going to be likely use cases. There could be a scenario where the land is owned separately or in some odd separation between the actual structure. I don't know if that exists in Englewood, but I'm sure that that's possible that could occur. The landowner has one idea, the structure has another idea. We can't necessarily address all of these in this first path. And I think we need to look at what our goal is here. Now, I know that there's some other suggestions being put forth elsewhere in this code next that could increase development in the city as a whole. Having the opportunity for designation of properties voluntarily by the people that want to save their home or save their neighborhood, I think is the most important function of this right now. Do we?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agree.
Yeah, so having the owner submit the application or the owner's consent of submitting the application, I think is the best method here. So,
Well, don't they say things, Cash, you can help me. Don't they say things like owner or it's deemed representative or something like that?
I don't remember, but
No,
I
I'm just
think-
saying in general legality thing.
I mean,
When it comes right down to it, the owner has to sign it, period.
yeah, and I
Whether
think
they
that's what
created
this
it or
says. So
not. Yeah,
yeah, and this is I've got the same issue, Matt. What I'm looking at doesn't exactly track with what's on screen, but I think so. I think the solution here, Victoria, if you don't mind scrolling down just so I can see the rest of that I think that process about contacting the owner, I think that I needs to be deleted. And I think that fixes the problem.
I think it does. We just want to make sure that for the districts, because you do require the simple majority of the owners to consent. The other property owners within that district should be notified.
Sure.
So we can make that changes along those lines, because
What if we just get rid of paragraph D and make I into paragraph D?
We don't need I anymore, though.
I don't think we need I anymore.
Because we took out D, so, yeah, there we go.
Okay, and we're still notifying
No,
others in the
no, because there's only the owner can be involved at this point.
So we go up a little further, what, so the nomination may be made by the owner of the property, by a member of the commission, by a member of city council. What would be the purpose of, for instance, a member of the city council submitting a nomination? Is that an authority that are we granting a special authority to the members of the commission and or the members of council in this case?
They could
how do
be
you,
Speaking for a group.
I'm sorry?
I guess they could be speaking for a group. Thanks for going back. I kind of,
Yeah, Victoria, what's your
Yeah.
understanding of the authorities put in place by that?
this was put in place in 2021, and it is part of the model ordinance.
And the model ordinance being CLG,
Correct.
okay.
well, if the historic preservation or the city council, there has to be some sort of notification to the owner. You can't do something without notifying.
Well, this would be, yeah, there'd have to be some sort of, there has to be a notification of the owner, yeah.
But the application would be accompanied by the written consent. The issue for notification, though, that point is well taken, though, with respect to the rest of the members of the district.
Okay.
Cash, what's your opinion? So by member of the commission and or a member of city council, do we want, and basically what we're saying here, and the way I read this is an owner of the property can say, hey, I want my house designated. Or a member of the commission should say, your house should be designated. A member of city council should say, your house should be designated. That's how I read that.
I agree. It's fine. I mean, if it's coming from the CLG model ordinance, it makes no difference. It makes no
and it
difference.
is, it was in
Yeah.
our original one that Jason drafted that was based on the model.
And Cash,
Yeah.
any other statement? I'm sorry, kind of both we talked there for a minute.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problem with it the way that it's set up. I mean, no matter who does it, the way this is drafted now, it's going to require owner consent. So
Okay,
it's fine.
that's good, because I mean, you know, I'm going to throw out a scenario there. You don't like your next door neighbor, so you want to mess with them. You say your house should be designated. No, I don't want my house designated. Well, I'm going to get on the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm going to designate your house. We don't want that.
No.
So, but Victoria, there is consent process to confirm, no matter what.
Yes, there is consent process to confirm. I just for where that again, for the other members of the district who aren't part of that simple majority, who aren't providing the consent, I would just including some of the language from E about notifying them.
Okay.
And that's something I can kind of work on.
So no matter what, if it's an individual property or district, because there's two separate functions here, individual property being designated versus by way of this third party wording that's in the CLG, member of the commission, member of city council, the owner still has to have consent to it being designated. And on the flip side of it, yes, okay, so a district is a bigger problem. We've had this discussion quite a few times. What constitutes that? We've already gone over it, simple majority, right? That's what we came up with. Yeah, simple majority. That seemed to be, everybody in the commission seemed to agree to that. It's a little trickier situation, but still there's a consent process that's provided. Kind of, but there's a notification at least that goes out that says, okay, you may not have agreed with this, but there is a simple majority that says it should be, and therefore it is now, and this is what happened, letting people know that that happened. Is that how it's kind of interpreted from a legal perspective, Victoria?
Yeah, just for the individuals that are outside of that simple majority, that they know this is happening.
Yeah, I've got it. Okay.
That's it.
Good. All right. Well, that was kind of a big one to chew on there. Anything else on this? Okay, let's keep moving. Application. Let me move my number there. Application shall be
Submitted.
submitted. Thank you. Submitted to the city on a form provided by the commission. The application fee shall be established by ordinance and maintained in the city's rate and fee schedule.
Okay, so it says by the commission because we created it, because to me, I'm picturing it, you go onto the city website and you find it.
Well, I'll jump in here and I'll say that there are a number of forms that have to be very specific in the various functions. Building department, Victoria, jump in, tell me if I'm saying anything that's not appropriate here. But building department has their form. It is set up in a specific way and it's agreed to actually by ordinance, a lot of them in the building department, but some of them are set up individually, but the form has to be approved by, i.e. a department, a commission or council. It can't be changed. So if it's online, it could be an electronic form, but it looks the way that we say it should look. Is that right?
That's accurate. And maybe just for clarity, we can change provided to approved.
Yay, like it.
I like it.
That's why you earn the big bucks, huh, Vicky? What are
The
you up to,
application,
23 cents?
I personally, I'm sorry, CJ, go ahead. I was
No,
talking.
I was just saying she's probably earning 23 cents an hour by now. But anyway, go ahead.
She's working late tonight, 7:30. The application fee, I understand. And that's a lot of things I think the city attorney's office is working on right now is having those fees set into the charter and fees set into ordinances. And it makes things really difficult to understand, read, and or deal with in the future if you lock it into an ordinance. So having it set by schedule, however, it would.
Well, one of our discussions after in 2021 was that, for instance, a $500 application fee would be a deterrent to people, and that would we have the ability to waive the fee in order to get people to be interested in applying.
Just FYI, the current fee is $200.
Well, yeah, I have it pulled up too. I'm just trying to find where.
That's right here, historic designation application, $500.
Weren't we talking about two? We could.
This is
certainly-
Nancy. If
I
I
thought
could
that had
inter-
changed, maybe
Yeah.
not.
Oh, stand by, hold on. Nancy.
Yeah, this is Nancy. Vicky's pulling up the 2021 schedule of fees.
Okay.
If you go on the city's website under community development, the 2023s, it's $200. Eric is correct.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, it was reduced.
But weren't we also talking about that maybe sometimes we might use our commission funds to help offset stuff? We don't need to delineate that in an ordinance, right?
I don't know if that has to be or not.
Well, I mean, let's go back to the Cherylin horse car. The city owns it. Is the city going to pay a $200 application fee?
I think
Are we
should
going to
list
do a
that.
hostile designation?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting scenario. So Victoria, can we put in there that upon discretion of the commission, based upon budget or whatever, fees
Yeah,
can be,
how would you say that? Huh?
what's that?
Well, I'm guessing scholarship or grant or things like that could always come later. It doesn't, to me, have to be part of an ordinance because we don't want to compel the commission to do something.
That's right. It's very true.
But that idea of having an option later would be cool. And again, if we use the word grant or something, it doesn't have to be in an ordinance.
I don't know if we can use the word grant necessarily, but in this particular case, would there be anything to prevent us from being able to allocate funds from, for instance, a commission budget?
There we go. What do you think about that, Victoria?
I want to look into that. I think that would be generally fine, especially if that's being approved by ordinance by council. I need to talk to our finance department to make sure that they would have the ability to, segregate those funds that come in through and are paid as part of the rate and fee schedule and have them applied and then used at the discretion of the commission. So I think there's just some administrative work I want to run down to make sure that that'll work.
Oh, gosh. Wow, what a pain.
In a similar vein, when you do that, I don't know the answer. Maybe you know the answer off the top of your head, but is it possible for a commission like this one to waive an application fee, or is that in conflict with the city's rate and fee schedule?
There are other parts of the rate and fee schedule where,
I wouldn't expect you to know that answer. I'm just thinking in checking on the other part of it, that might be a question to ask as well.
like for a hardship.
So instead of granting, I like that word waive better. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that gets us to where we need to be if we can find the details on that. Okay. So getting ready to move along here. Any other points here on number 2? Okay, moving along, number 3, public hearing 3A. Within 45 days after an application is determined complete or within a time frame agreed upon by the applicant and the city, a public hearing shall be held by the commission. Quite a long paragraph here. I don't think I need to read all of it, but can we open up any discussions if there's any changes?
Now, the point that Melinda brought up on the idea that it's a meeting, it's not a public hearing, but it is technically public, right? Because we're always open to the public, right?
Yes, you're open to the public. And in the prior version, there was an area that made it so that there would be a public hearing on the application before the commission. That would be held 30 days after the submission of the application. The language now in this new proposed section 3 just kind of adds some more, procedures around what that looks like.
So, and the version I'm looking at calls it a designation hearing versus the version that you're looking at that is calling it a public hearing.
So the designation hearing is the language used by the CGL in their model ordinance. When we last met, it seemed that that language seemed to be confusing.
No,
Because I'm
and I mean,
thinking public hearing means the city council, so.
well, I mean, but commissions, if they become quasi judicial or if they operate in a quasi judicial capacity, they have the authority to hold a public hearing. And a public hearing is a legally binding. Literally, when you stand before a public hearing, you are sworn in, and your statements are taken under oath. Is that correct, Victoria?
Yes.
So this gives a fair bit of authority by calling it a public hearing. It is giving the authority of us being able to, or the council being able to hold a public hearing. Who has that authority?
As this is written, and as it was written in the prior version, both commission and the city council would be holding a public hearing.
Okay, which I'm okay with. The public hearing holds a legal binding to the statements and on the record that are stated during a public hearing, right? There's it's more than coming to the commission and speaking at public forum and saying, hi, I'm interested in designating my property versus I do solemnly swear I'd like to designate my property.
That's correct.
So, great. I-
Well, and I understand you have to publish the notice in the paper and so forth.
Oh, that's true.
But
yeah.
we do publish, our meeting agenda and dates and so forth on the city's website.
That would not be enough. We would have, if it was truly a legal public hearing, I believe that it would have to be published in some sort of written form. I don't know if that's still the case. I assume that's the case, but in some sort of written
Yeah.
form. Media in various places posted around City Hall, a certain number of days ahead of the public hearing.
And I noticed the sign, you have to post the sign at the property's location. I compared that to Golden's ordinance, and actually the city has to when the planning and zoning people receive the application and so forth, they're required to post the sign. And they have to do it like 12 days before the hearing in Golden.
This language matches our other land use processes for notification.
I was just gonna say that, Eric, this is very, very close to what the Board of Adjustments and Appeals would follow on a process like that, right? So,
You just don't post when you're going to demolish a building.
okay, any other input on this as we move along? I mean, this is somewhat boilerplate to the other stuff. The other methods and processes within the city for this. Is this seem to make sense for everyone? Okay, not hearing anything, moving along. For historic preservation commission review. B, the commission shall review the application and evidence submitted at the public hearing for conformance with established criteria for designation and with the purpose of the section. Purpose of the section. How does
Now,
that-
I think we should put a reference there to the later on, we designate from the Department of Interior criteria,
No,
and we should refer, yeah, we do, or we did. We should refer to that.
the Department of Interior criteria is really intense.
Yeah.
CLGs don't always follow Department of Interior. That goes through the park. That's that's the thing where it talks about caulking in the windows and stuff. I mean, it's pretty intense.
And
Yeah.
I would second what CJ's saying on that, and the fact that we don't want to discourage people.
So section E below gets into what the criteria is, and if I can just, I don't want to lose our spot, but I'm gonna scroll down to that because I didn't make any substantive changes to that section.
Mhm.
And I do believe that there is something in here about the Department of the Interior.
Oh, shoot.
So let me just,
We had a section entitled criteria.
yes,
And that
that's, yeah, that's under section E.
there, yes.
And I believe there was something in here that referenced the Department of the Interior. So before we go on, I just want to see if that's
Well,
accurate.
and you see, yeah, you see these, and I'm just saying, we should refer to this section just by number.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about
So the reference, at least in the version I'm looking at, to the Department of the Interior is under the review criteria after something's already been designated. And it's talking about, it says it's under F alterations. It's F4A. The proposed alterations will comply with any design guidelines adopted by the city and the Secretary of Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. So that is not the designation criteria. It's review for alterations.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
All right.
And
Well,
that's
that-
that's in the version I'm looking at, that is the only appearance of the word interior in the document. I just ran a search on it. So
Mm.
Okay, Melinda, does it settle your concerns?
But well, now it creates my concerns.
Now, the designation criteria, which is not as extensive as the Department of the Interior, but and all I'm saying is when we say we're going to review the application, we should refer to the section of the criteria. That section, what is it, E there, but
Commissioner Shell,
E and whatever the numbers are underneath it.
yeah. All right. Melinda, do you have any other concerns on this?
Under section E and with, right. Yeah, as long as we refer to it, I'm okay with. We
Okay,
don't have to repeat it all in the same place.
Sure, fair. Okay, thank you, Melinda. CJ, what are your concerns now?
Well, just because of what you hear Department of the Interior and it's like, oh, shoot, now you have to be really stringent. And that's where Arapahoe Acres gets really with the facade, only the facade. And so anyway, it's just a concern, I guess. I don't have any answers. That's the problem.
So it's easy to get in. It's hard to modify, is effectively how I'm seeing this process come about.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Again,
mean, once designated, it should be able to, we should be able to say no to alteration if it's a significant thing.
I
See,
can
that's
test,
the power. Oh, gosh.
so I can test that, again, at least from my perspective, I don't want to speak for anyone else in the commission here, but the main purpose and function of this designation is to prevent the demolition of properties within the city and not tell them what kind of windows they're allowed to put in their property.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Now, I understand, CJ, your area, it's different, right? Because
Well,
it's,
no, but I mean, that's exactly where we ended up though. So do we have vinyl windows? Yes. Do we have pane windows instead of the old crank windows that was actually here? Yes. Does it still look good from the street? Yeah. You know what I mean?
no, and I know, I mean, there's a house up the road from me, beautiful 1910 brick, Denver Square. And it had the original windows in it for a long time, and it just pained me to see them take those beautiful, some of them were stained glass, and they took them out and put vinyl windows in there. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, vinyl windows, as much as the way they look, they're more efficient.
At
And
least they didn't tear the whole thing down, right?
that's true. I mean, honestly, it still stands.
Well, and
but-
actually vinyl windows aren't all that much more efficient, but
That's fair. It's based upon a timeline, but that's
Yeah.
the time frame because the glass eventually,
oh, yeah, say, yeah, I
It all
mean,
leaks out.
glass has a limited R value no matter what the surrounding stuff is.
fair
So
I guess the thing that scares me when we start using Department of the Interior is I don't plan that the next commission person that takes my place is going to have to go and do a approval process on when they want to change certain things in their house. I mean, now we're getting into nitpicky. I'm
Well,
not
yeah.
nitpicky, but more detailed, where the owner's gonna say, well, heck, if, I mean, I want to save my house, but I don't want someone telling me what to color it.
That's right. And that's right. And see, here's the thing is I am a proponent for some of the stuff they've done on our side of town. Melinda, you know, the 3 houses on Lincoln there where they kept the original house and just built on the back of it and like a modern house. And from the street, you can't tell the difference. It looks like the same neighborhood we've always lived in, a beautiful 1920s bungalow,
Uh-huh.
but it's
Yeah.
3,000
And I
square feet
mean,
on the
and I
back.
had no objection to those too.
And I
I
don't
know
want to
just what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to have an objection to that because that's adaptive reuse. We want to encourage adaptive reuse.
And that's what I agree with too. But I don't know if are we making a problem or is it going to make a problem? That's what I'm curious right now.
Well, Victoria, we have given you not very much detail or specific direction on that. What are your recommendations?
So that's not something I looked into too extensively because that's how it was recommended back in 2021 when this went to council twice. So I mean, I think that's kind of a policy decision for the commission and then eventually council to consider about how onerous they want to make this.
Okay. Brian, I see that you unmuted there for a minute. Would you like to jump in?
No, it's an accident. My dogs got into the room I was in.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure you have ability to comment there. Cash, help me out. You kind of see the same way?
I agree. I mean, the problem though is I think all that review language comes from the model ordinance, right? And if you want the designation to have any teeth to it, you've got to have some review criteria. And this went to council in this form a couple of times already. Overhauling that from where we're at now is that's a big project, probably more than we can do in the time remaining we have this evening.
Understood. We're coming up on 8.
Okay.
So I'll come back around to CJ. You okay with leaving it in there based upon that?
Totally.
It's one of those
I
things.
would like to move something forward. I just didn't want to move it forward with I don't know, an axe, you have to do it this way.
Yeah, no, I know. I get that. Melinda, what's your opinion?
I always have an opinion, but
That's great.
yeah. No, I mean, I think the more severe criteria should be on alterations of already designated things. And like, gosh, one of the historic points of my own house is that I have the original windows. And I'm not giving them up, but and they work just fine. And of course, then I object to vinyl windows, but that's I mean, I think we can go ahead with what we have here. We've established reasonable criteria for designation.
It is reasonable criteria, and it is based upon Takeshi's point, the model ordinance. So let's move past this for now, and let's continue on.
Can I say one thing?
Oh yeah, hi Hannah. Sorry, I'm asking
Sorry.
you.
I'm just listening.
You're one below.
So I just thinking of everything you said, it is really hard to redo like a building, once you've already designated as a historical landmark, and then you go and you want to make adjustments. Like an example is we have abandoned buildings across from my hotel, across from Emily's Alley, which is what we end up calling it, and they're just abandoned at the moment. some people want to put parking spaces in there to allow for things. Some people want to make it into restaurants, whatever, but we can't do modifications because there are those criteria in place. Like you can't take out a window and create a door right here. You can't do, because it messes with the building. So I kind of agree with when I listen to all of them talk with keeping kind of those stringent things in there for now and then seeing what we can do later, because it really does keep the integrity in place for a while. Even though it is scary and it does kind of give you a third party into what you can and can't do in your own home. And I understand that that's hard, but it does keep the integrity there at least. I'm noticing one thing in what we're dealing with at the slate, and there's a time frame that they've given. It's been designated as a landmark, and after a certain amount of time, they can kind of do whatever they want, and that criteria kind of drops off. Those stringent things drop off, and so they're just kind of waiting for that to happen. May or may not agree with that kind of strongly, but I was wondering if when we get down below, if we can look at making sure that there's no timetable that people can just wait out to be able to make modifications that we don't agree with, if that makes sense.
Find out. An interesting point. So like having the criteria meet a period of time, but then after X number of years of under designation, the opportunity, that is an interesting point. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and it's very strange to me because then it's kind of like, well, what was the point in going through all of these steps if you're just going to designate and then wait it out?
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that if we're going through all of these steps to make sure that this doesn't, that we're taking care of the integrity of Englewood, even
20,
years
30
down the
years.
road.
Yeah. Yeah, not kicking the can, just preserving the building for 20 or 30 years, but allowing the substantial demolition later or destruction of it later. Yeah, I would be against any kind of time frame personally. And once designation occurs, although there is a process outlined in here to remove the designation if necessary. But again, that's difficult. It should be once you get it designated.
And I think we have it in there, or we did have it in there, that a designated property, if the owner sells it, the new owner also gets the designation. It's not, it stays with the property, not with the owner.
Right. Okay. Hannah, thank you for that input. That's really interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Any other comments?
No, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. When we scrolled all the way down, I remembered that piece, and it's kind of sticking with me at my current location. And so I want to make sure it doesn't happen here.
Sure. Yeah, fair. Okay, well, do we have a consensus to continue moving here? Okay. Victoria, I'll let you go ahead and scroll the page down here. I want to make sure that we say here. Okay, so the commission set forth in writing its findings of fact to constitute basis of recommendation. The commission may continue the nomination process if the commission finds that additional information is necessary to make a recommendation. If the hearing is continued, time, date, and place of the continuation shall be established and announced to those present when the current session is to be adjourned. In no case can a hearing be continued for more than 30 days without expressing consent of the applicant. Any concerns on this thus far? Any input?
30 days seems so fast.
Well, if we're doing it at our monthly meeting, then it's probably going to be continued until the next monthly meeting, so
Okay.
30 days is probably likely.
That makes sense. Commission shall forward its recommendation to City Council for final review. City Council proceedings within 30 days after receipt of the Commission's recommendation. The City Council shall hold a public hearing on the application to consider adopting by ordinance those properties qualifying for designation. City Council shall review the application for conformance with this ordinance. City council shall approve with conditions, or deny the application and shall issue written findings based on the commission's recommendations.
So a
Everything
public hearing for the city council could be just a meeting, right?
Public,
Well, yeah, so it's a public hearing, so it's going to be consistent with the city council's rules regarding public hearing. So there will be a notice provision that's provided that's comparable to what the commission provides. And then the same procedures would be followed where anyone that's speaking would be sworn in and things along those lines.
Forgive me, but it would be handled during a city council meeting, or it has
Yes.
to be something special? Oh, okay, good.
it
That's-
would be likely scheduled during a normal, right, Victoria? I'm sorry, I don't want to offer any advice here that's incorrect.
Yeah, it would be at a regular meeting of city council.
Thank you.
Any objections, concerns thus far? Okay, continuing on. The city shall provide a copy of the decision of the city council's final action to the applicant and owners. City council's decision shall be final, subject only to judicial review in Arapahoe County District Court. So this is very similar to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, right? So city council makes a decision on a property that the property owner does not agree with, they're allowed to appeal it to Arapahoe County District Court.
Correct.
Recording of designation within 30 days of the effective date of an ordinance designating a landmark or district. The city clerk shall record the ordinance with the city clerk and recorder of Arapahoe County. Is there a provision in Arapahoe County to record this sort of thing? Do we know? I would imagine there is.
Does this happen all anyway, Nancy?
Does what happen, CJ? I'm sorry.
No, it says the city clerk shall record the ordinance with the county clerk and recorder of Arapahoe County. That happens already, right?
Vicky would know that better than I,
Oh.
because city clerk handles all that, not our office. But in Matt's question, yes, you can record things at Arapahoe County. They'll take any document and record it.
Oh,
Okay.
fair enough.
I imagine Littleton does things like this. They have a working historic preservation commission, I believe, so.
Now, what's interesting is we say the city shall maintain a current record of all landmarks and districts. Who? Who will be responsible? Is it up to the city to decide? And then in 2024, it's the library. In 2026, it's communications. In 2024, you know what I mean? Is it going to have a specific place, or is it just really whatever the city manager decides? I mean, I guess that's who decides this, where it's going to go.
We can include that in here. Generally, records like this are maintained by the city clerk's office, and
I'm
That's-
sorry, I didn't hear you.
the city clerk's office is generally where these records are maintained. And there
Okay.
are certain requirements with what they have to keep records of.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing on down the line, resubmission of the city council denies an application. No person shall submit an application for the same property for the last 1 year from the effective date of the final action of the denied application, unless the denial was based on a request for additional information.
So this person was spent $200, was told it ain't gonna happen. They don't get their $200 back. And in a year, they're gonna go ahead and spend another $200?
And I think that's up to the property owner, that's, honestly,
But
It's not
seriously, if
guaranteed.
they're denied, they lose their money, right? They don't get it back.
that's
right?
correct. Yep. Right, Victoria?
Yes, there's not a reimbursement procedure in here.
Any concerns?
Because here it says, and then we say here, unless the denial was based for additional information, we only had those three things, approval with needed information, and denial. So to me, this unless the denial was based on a request doesn't make sense here, to me. Am I missing something?
So this was part of the 2021 revisions, and I believe is part of the model ordinance. I think that's where that came from.
But do you understand where my confusion comes in?
I do understand where your confusion comes in. It's something that we can delete.
I say let's delete it because we already defined the three different things and denied application is denied. If we say, oh, you know, hey, we're waiting for more information or whatnot, they could take 2, 5, 10 years to get that to us.
Well, yeah, but this says this. So this says if you're denied, you can't reapply within a year.
Yes, but if
Unless-
we've requested additional information, we haven't actually denied it, done a
Right.
final denial.
Right.
We're waiting for additional information.
Yeah, I say let's just take that out.
Well, it allows them the opportunity to resubmit
Oh,
within a
they'll always, when they resubmit, they just are basically starting from scratch again.
But the way that would read at that point is if you're starting from scratch again, you have to start from scratch 365 days from the day that you submitted your application.
Versus the day of denial.
Yeah. Well, in either case, if you don't put unless the denial, I mean, if you're denied based upon request for additional information, then you resubmit your application 2 days later, and you have that option. If you take
No,
that out,
But denied is different than accept with whatever that second thing was that we had. Does anybody have that in their?
I just checked in our final draft does not have that statement about the denial based on a request.
I hear that it was inserted by Kendra Carberry on May 6, 2021.
I don't care.
Oh, no, I just.
And our
I'm sorry.
it was based on a limitation of resubmission to reconsideration. They shall not submit for that is the same or substantially the same for at least 1 year from the effective date of the final action on the denied application, and that's it.
Okay. So
I appreciate
consensus?
I appreciate that being in there. I honestly appreciate that unless the denial was based on the request for, that means that allows you, the person, the applicant, to submit again, because we said, hey, you didn't give us enough information. And
That was the second thing in those 3 different groupings way towards the beginning.
oh, is it redundant? Is that what we're talking about here? Because maybe I'm missing that.
To me, it's 2 different things. Do you know what I'm talking about, Victoria? Or Vic?
That it would be, yeah, it's approved with conditions or denied.
That one.
I understand your
Yeah.
point that there isn't. something-
Approval with conditions. You know, so we're waiting for information. How can we say that approval with conditions? Maybe we shouldn't say that. Approval awaiting?
Well, because you were continuing the nomination process.
Right. That's the way I looked at it. But now when I read it, approval with conditions. Well, okay, we're gonna give it to you, but you can't change the windows. What? I mean, okay. Does that make sense? I mean, now I'm thinking I want to change that approval with conditions to.
You guys mind if I speak up? That's a very normal
Please,
practice.
Brian.
Approval with conditions is a very normal practice. What I think this clause is saying is if you deny it, you have to give a reason for denial. And if you didn't have enough information to make a decision, it allows the applicant to reapply within the year. But if you take this clause out, they can't reapply until after a year, even if you needed more information. And they could get it 3 days later, they have to wait 365 days to reapply. That's why that clause is in there.
No,
Or at
but
least to me,
approval
as a
with
practitioner, as
conditions.
someone that processes these applications, that's how I'm reading it.
Okay,
Yeah, and I see that. I see that the same way, Brian.
so it is like I'm thinking, it just reads differently. You're saying, okay, we're gonna approve you if you fill this stuff in or provide us with this additional info, right?
No,
No,
because we don't know what that additional info would be. So in this, it would
well,
be
conditions.
It's not an approval based on the application itself. There's going to be additional conditions imposed by either the commission or council So that would then lead to the approval.
Yes. And specific, yeah, that sounds right. I mean, it allows the opportunity for the commission and or council to provide criterion to say, I don't know an example, but to apply some other requirement to the scenario. And if that is met, then the commission or council can provide the. Am I getting that right, Victoria? That's pretty much.
Yes,
What you just
I
said.
mean, so first, this language is from the model ordinance, which is, I think, why it's in here. And then approval with conditions is also something that other bodies will do, like the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think the Board of Adjustments also does something along those lines, where they take the application and it's not an approval based on the black letter of that application. There might be an additional condition they impose on it, such as, I mean, what's typically seen with the planning and zoning is that there's going to be additional, park space or something along those lines. That, okay, if that's going to be added to the application because we're imposing that as an additional condition, then this is granted.
So to Brian's point, the way this is structured, the commission and then later the city council either have to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. So if there's not enough information, the commission and the city council can't just hold the process open without going through all the notice requirements of continuing the hearing and all of that. So if there's not enough information, the commission or the council are going to have to deny that application. And so that piece is in there, like Brian said, if someone's denied because there's not enough information, they can reapply sooner than 1 year out. That's why that's structured that way.
Right. And when they make that denial, there'll be a reason for it. And if that reason has to do with additional information being necessary,
right,
it'll be in that time.
Vicki, it's Nancy. I have a quick question. There was language in here that the commission or the council could continue a meeting, correct? So if they
Yes.
wanted additional information, would the commission have the option to continue to their next meeting to allow the applicant to provide that additional information? Does that provide any clarity?
It
Is
does
that
to me.
correct?
Well,
Would they be able to do, I'm asking Vicki, she's the attorney. I just want to.
Yes, so there would be that opportunity to continue it. And I'm trying to scroll up to where that section is. I know we just talked about it a few moments ago. Yeah, here we go in section, I think this is now E. So they would get the opportunity to continue it for that additional submittal of information. But what this additional other section contemplates is, they have continued it, for instance, they're not getting information, they're not able to move forward with the application, so that they would then be finally denying it. Does that address your question, Nancy, or are there other questions around that?
No, I was just trying to clarify that because, but no, that was it. Thanks.
And I appreciate
That
that.
helps me. Thank you, Nancy.
okay. You okay, CJ?
Yeah, it's just breathing, little things like that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Nancy. That's actually a good point. I had missed that. So that's and that takes care of that. And back to 6 here. I would want to keep unless the denial was based upon the request of additional information, simply because that allows the opportunity for them to resubmit, and it does not deter them from resubmitting the application. They made it through the process. Okay, oops, it was denied. You can resubmit though, because with more information, if it goes past that 30-day period or whatever. So it allows another option for them to submit. CJ, does that settle your concerns?
Fine.
Okay, cool. All right, moving along. C, amendment of designation. A landmark or district may be amended to add features or properties to such landmark or district under procedures described in this chapter. Let me scroll down there. Revocation of designation of landmark or district has been altered. Okay, so this has largely not been adjusted here. I don't find it necessary to read all of this. Is there any input on D?
I guess the thing that's sad to me is that it says if it has been altered to a degree, meaning it already happened, and obviously they didn't look for permission. Whatever approval they got for changes through the planning department didn't get caught or sent to the commission. It's kind of hitting me like where something happened and nobody did anything or was involved in telling the commission, hey, this is going on, just so you guys know.
Well, or it got destroyed by a tornado or something, you know, that.
Yeah, that is that scenario, but you do bring up a good point, CJ. What happens if we get an overzealous developer and he sees that historic landmark plaque on the front of the property, he takes the 4 screws out, tosses it off to the side in the recycle bin and says, here comes the bulldozer. You can't tell me what to do.
Well,
the
that would be,
planning
I mean, that
department
would be,
had
that's
that.
well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That would be illegal. So like, there's not, I mean, it's the same thing as saying, what if someone shoots someone on the street? There's a law against murder. So that's the whole point of this protection. So that's it. I don't mean to cut off a discussion, but that's a completely esoteric debate and discussion that doesn't relate to what we're doing here. And I don't think we need to have respectfully.
Oh, appreciate that very much.
So
Kat.
the idea that
Wondering
it
what the-
says that is no longer retains its historic integrity, so they broke a law?
If something has a historic designation, if this ordinance passes and someone doesn't go through the process to get approval of an alteration for it, yeah, they will have broken a law to do that. So if people are willing to break the law, people are willing to break the law. So that's the situation.
I appreciate that.
But to Melinda's point, I think this is aimed at more like, yeah, what if there's a natural disaster that destroys something? And so the owner says, we need to take the designation off. And I think that's really what this is more aimed at.
Oh, huh,
Okay, no, I very much, I appreciate that, Cash. That's
me too.
that's
Thank
a
you.
good way of looking at it. Any other discussions on D?
Fatiguing, isn't it?
Not hearing any, we'll go down to E with criteria. We've discussed this a little bit in previous. Fair bit of modifications in here. Let's look at this as the first part. Is there any input on section 1?
If I just made, the modifications in here were made from 2021. These aren't modifications made by the current office.
Fair. So I can keep this moving here. Is there anything in the criteria that is of concern?
Can we go down or?
Mhm. Let's start.
Oh. I like that it's shorter.
I thought we had something about architectural, can we scroll back up here a bit then? Because that seems like events, yes, or,
Yeah, that's way back.
and
where
then
you said at the
section
beginning.
2 there's been totally removed.
Right,
Well, it's not necessarily within a group of structures within a.
This is all largely.
I'm thinking of the Deaton Bank.
Mhm.
It's a unique example from and designated by the state anyway, because of its architectural distinctiveness.
but in Englewood, we would say it's a landmark, period.
Mhm.
Yeah, but how would we call it a landmark other than it's already been designated? We're not talking about like an example of arts and crafts construction or things like that.
Oh.
It's architectural style. That's the.
Let's let's do this, Melinda, if you don't mind me jumping in here. I think a lot of this was changed, simply removed in this format, and similar content was provided below. Considering that this was all discussed in 2021 largely.
Oh, there, all right, there it is in C,
Right.
okay.
So if we could maybe I was focusing on the wrong part of here. Part here.
Thank you.
We can
Thank
look at C down and make sure that it meets the criteria that we appreciate and approve. Then we may not have to necessarily worry about what was ahead of it. Because it
Yeah.
just seems like it's different formatting and different, slightly different wording. But
Yeah,
so-
there's the architectural thing, so.
Okay,
Didn't want that to be lost.
is there any input on this? This criteria, this is largely discussed in 2021. But I just want to make sure that this still fits. I mean, this is our last chance ahead of adoption of the ordinance to council. So it's important that I think we look at this on a critical level, but that said, we have looked at this a few times. Is there anything that is up for discussion on this? Melinda, no, you're fine. Cash? Awesome.
I'm good.
Hannah?
I'm good.
All right, cool, because that's kind of a important part there. So districts. Moving along to districts. Few changes here of recent.
What's
There
that?
are, I don't think there's any recent changes here. This 2/3, wait. This is the most recent change here, and that's because it's in the application section above regarding the 50% of the properties.
Yeah, agreed, that can go.
So everything else here was from the prior version.
I'm not sure I need to go back.
Actually, I think there's no A either, so paragraph A.
It would start with whether the district includes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's A there.
Right.
Whether the district includes properties that do not contribute to the significant, well, it's hard to, let's see here. So whether the district includes properties that do not contribute to the significance of the the district, but the non-contributing elements do not notably detract from the district's sense of time, place, and historical development. Evaluating the non-contributing elements for their magnitude of impact by considering their size, scale, design, location, and informational potential. I mean, it seems very boilerplate, just been modified slightly with that. Right, I mean, this is from model ordinance.
Yes, this is from the model ordinance.
Okay. Go ahead and scroll down to C. Whether the district boundaries are defined by visual changes, historical documentation of different association patterns or changes. Let's see. Any comments thus far here as we're moving down? Yeah, not hearing any district designated as historic district by Englewood or Apple County or by the State National Register of Historic Places. Where does that sentence end?
At places.
I'm sorry? At
It
places?
ends at historic places.
Okay, so any designated Apple County National Register, oh, of places, okay, that makes sense, all right.
There's that period all by itself down there.
That's a missed that.
That-
Oof. All right, any input on that? I mean, that's pretty simple. So if I'm correct on this, Victoria, this ties in National Register into the local ordinance.
Yes. Yes.
And that's fantastic because we do have nationally recognized properties within the city of Englewood that just kind of float out there on their own. Fantastic.
Page 6.
Page 6, hey, we're making pretty good progress here. Alterations, relocation, demolition of landmarks and districts requirements. Not a whole lot of changes on this.
You know, what's interesting is on the state level, they cannot do a relocation. That's why they've lost buildings. And it's so sad. So I'm kind of glad we have the word relocation.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how Castle Rock is. All that stuff downtown. Most of it was imported.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I've kind of lost my detailing here.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I don't think I'd be much help right now.
Any other input associated with this? Okay, scrolling along, application.
So the only addition here is this section right here in red, that the notice would be in conformance with the procedures that are set forth above.
Because I was thinking we had 30 days. We got changed to 45.
You know, changed to 45.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Okay, no objections, no input.
Just a small one in 2A where it says submitted by the owner to the city on a form provided by the commission. I would suggest changing provided to
Oh, that's
approved
right.
to make it consistent with the other change we made.
Cash, you're
Good.
good.
Cash.
You earned your money tonight.
We like having
And
you
we're
on the
not paying
commission.
you enough cash.
That's what I tell all my clients.
All right, any other input? Okay, let's keep moving. What's next? Review criteria. Proposal change.
So I don't believe there's any changes that are new. Everything in here is from 2021.
Okay, let's keep moving. The
Oh,
commission
isn't that
shall,
interesting? Go up to that 4C. Infill construction within districts shall be differentiated from the landmark, but compatible with the historic materials and stuff like that. I just think that's terrible. If you want to look like where you're building, let them look like.
Well, they don't though. And if it's a designated historic district and they want to build something in the middle of the thing, then it should be compatible.
No, but it says shall be differentiated. Why? Why the word shall be differentiated?
that is an interesting use of words there. What
What does this mean?
Differentiated from the landmark. What shall be
It's
differentiated?
it's from the model ordinance, and it was included within the 2021 revisions, and that, shall makes it mandatory.
So let's say that there's a burn of one of our houses in Arapahoe Acres. The whole house burns down. They put it back. It has to be differentiated. That's the part I don't get. It has to be differentiated from the landmark. That doesn't make sense.
I would argue in that case, CJ, that you're reconstructing a property. You're not infilling a property at that point. Wouldn't that be a difference?
Whereas like in Matt's in my neighborhood, they tear down say we were a historic district, they tear down a historic house and they put in this ugly 3-story box that doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. That
I don't know. I would almost,
that's why I approve of infill construction being required in a district, being required to fit in with the district.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still having trouble with the shall be differentiated.
I can see that.
You don't live across, surrounded by ugly 3-story boxes.
Well,
either.
no, I'm not sure if that's what, I mean, the compatible with historic materials, feature size and things proportion, that's fantastic. That's the good part, that protects against, in a historic district, that protects against having the big, box built there. But shall be differentiated from landmark, I guess, probably from the model ordinance, they're probably trying to achieve something that may not be applicable to our community in that case, and we didn't catch this until this point. Cash, you critical eyes on this? How do you see that read? Does that seem to make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, not knowing like where they came up with this with the model ordinance, I think, I mean, it's a bit of a word salad for sure. I think what it's saying is that infill construction is, if you have a district that's designated because it's a district and not an individual landmark, it's not prohibiting infill construction, I think is what it's aimed at. But it says, like you just said, Matt, it says that infill construction has to be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, so as to not ruin the district. Basically, I'm paraphrasing what it says.
But
So
it's differentiated because it's becomes a non-contributing part of the district.
yeah, I'm
Maybe.
guessing that's why they set it up that way.
Yeah,
But it still has to be compatible so that it doesn't destroy the integrity of the district.
Okay, I mean, I defer to whatever anybody says. I'm still confused, so.
I
that's
think,
okay.
I think we have to be careful with this because it is part of the model ordinance.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a reason for this that we don't understand. If we don't understand it, we probably shouldn't change it.
Well, it was weird because like one of the churches put in a downtown, put in a elevator, and they weren't allowed to make it look like the original building. But they still used brick, wood, whatever. They were able to use the design of today. And I'm just like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. I don't understand the logic. This guy, I mean, I would suggest, and I appreciate it, Victoria, for highlighting that. Do you think you could find more information on that, or is that?
Sure, yes, I can. I was sorry. I think you may have seen me fumbling around with folders. There's some guidance documents that the CGL puts out. So let me follow up with that. I'm just having trouble finding it at the moment.
All right, we'll keep rolling here so we can get through this. We're making pretty good time on this. So not to say that we need to rush, but we're doing this efficiently, I hope. Commission review. Any input? Not a whole lot changed here, maybe.
Well, I like the idea of it defining that approval with conditions.
Okay. Appeal of denial of certificate of appropriateness. Public hearing, that makes sense. Everything good so far? Okay, moving along. Exemptions.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Victoria, what is this?
we define what exemptions. Gotta scroll further.
Yeah, there's a section regarding like hardship and things along those lines when a property owner needs to be or is requesting to be exempt from the process.
This is more along the lines of protections, right? So.
Right. So
yeah. Yeah, this is all fine. Nobody have any objections, I assume.
I think I hit my wall.
I'm sorry?
I think I hit my wall.
Oh, getting tired?
And just I'm like, I'm sure I must have some opinions about this.
Okay. Again, this is all from 2021. We've seen this quite a few times. This is our last, potentially last look at this, but let's keep moving on down the list here. And if anybody sees anything jump out, safety, accessibility, okay, so it's minor change.
Mhm.
Okay. And decision, here we go. Getting back to the meat of things here. Vision, function, deems, criteria, section. Okay. Keep moving down. The decision of the city council shall be final. Now, that conflicts with earlier portion where it says it could be appealed. Is there any concern with that? Is that in contradiction?
So this is with respect to the exemption, where that decision is final, and I don't believe that there's any conflict with the earlier areas where appeal can be to the Arapahoe, to the district court.
Okay, so this is denial of an exemption.
Right.
So not necessarily the application. So that's, I suppose that there's a differentiation there. And this is, I assume, pretty standard here with most ordinances of this type. I mean, obviously from the model ordinance, but
It is, and it's consistent with the model ordinance.
okay. Okay, well, any objections? Okay, keep moving down, I guess.
Really at 45?
That's the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That came up fast. All right, to raise a question. Early, kind of similar to what earlier, Cash, you said, the scenario, if somebody breaks the law and intends to break the law, they're going to break the law. What happens when they do break this law? What are the penalties?
It would be enforceable in Englewood's municipal court under our general penalty and other provisions.
So a judge would determine what the quote unquote punishment is?
Yes, under their, they have discretion to determine what that would be.
Okay, so there isn't. Okay, well, that's interesting. I was curious.
Wouldn't have even thought of it. We have to have a good judge.
All right, folks, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? We've got a couple action items. I guess Victoria, you've been making notes along the side there, right? You've got a couple things you're gonna check. We've got a little bit of time before we need to get this to Brian and Eric.
So can it just be made pretty and?
Yep, what we'll do for the next, for your next meeting is you'll have this version with whatever other little things I was gonna look up. That'll all be incorporated, and then you'll also have a clean version, and then you'll be taking action based off of that. And I'm trying to find when your next meeting is. I believe it's the 16th.
I think it's the 15th, isn't it? Isn't
It's-
that the
yep,
third
it's the 15th.
Wednesday?
Is it correct?
Right.
Okay.
My apologies, I'm just thinking it's a Thursday.
So, I mean, we didn't object. I'm glad we got to where I guess we got, and correct me if I'm wrong here, just as kind of the last thing, nobody objected to any of the large scale portions within this. It's just the discussion points and further research that's to be made. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, that said, we allowed the provision to have another meeting in between our regular meeting, because I get, Brian, you needed to get this to council or get it prepared for council ahead of that. And when was that, Brian? What date did you need to get this to council?
We need to submit to them. We need to have it in our possession by the 20th. So that we can start preparing all of our staff communications and everything else that goes with it. Actually, we need it by the 17th.
17th.
So,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, Matt. I was just gonna say, so in other words, at our regular meeting on the 15th, we need to approve a final version, right?
Yes.
That's what I was getting at. We don't need another meeting in between now and our regular meeting, is basically what I was checking on. If we are, and if we're all in agreement to that, then we'll reconvene on the 15th, I guess, and we'll get the follow-up information from Victoria. Very much appreciate you working late on this.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, very much.
No problem. And I'll make sure that this is, submitted all, on the agenda at sufficient time beforehand, so that if there are any additional comments or questions, you can directly contact me, and I can make sure that they're addressed at the meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll reconvene again at our next meeting on the 15th then. Anything else? Anything else before we go?
Well, I did have one question.
Okay, well, I guess.
The code also contains a section of adaptive reuse. And an early review of the entire development code suggested that that section ought to be added to the historic preservation section.
Huh. Well,
Yeah,
We don't have,
and perhaps the committee reviewing all of that will suggest that, or maybe it'll continue to be separate.
I think it has to continue to be separate, because again, we need to look at the original function of this document, and that is to protect properties that are existing. And if we have the justification and ability to allow somebody to add on to a property to make it more usable, but do it in a respectful way, which I believe we have the authority to do, yes. Victoria, we have that authority within this. So we can allow them to do adaptive reuse within the guidelines of this. The main purpose here is to prevent properties from being largely destroyed.
okay,
Great.
thanks, Matt. Thank you, Melinda.
That's my understanding of this. Cash? Am I going out on anything here and shouldn't be?
No, I agree with what you said.
Okay,
I move. Do we have to do that? It's a study session. We don't have to do that, right?
no, it's official meeting. We need to, well,
Yep.
Eric,
Yep,
I
we
move we
need a
close
motion
it.
to adjourn.
So moved.
all right, is there a
Come on,
second?
Hannah.
Second.
Hannah, thank you. All right, we don't have to vote. We can just go, right?
Yeah, yep, we're good to go.
All right.
All right,
as
thanks,
Melinda says-
everybody.
Yep, thank you. As Melinda says.
Thanks,
I want people to say
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.